Okay. Good evening. This open meeting of the Hamden Board of Selectmen is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in publicly accessible physical locations. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. For this meeting, the Hamden Board of Selectmen is convening using Zoom video conferencing. Please note that the meeting is being recorded, and I'll call the roll. John Flynn.
Present.
Mary Ellen Glover.
Present. Present.
Robert Markle.
Present.
Pam Courtney. Anyone else on the call?
Pam is on the
Anyone else?
call. Pam is on the
Who?
call, but it looks as though she's connecting with audio.
Okay. I see you guys,
Yeah.
but I don't see myself, but I'm connected via my phone for some reason.
We
But
can hear you.
nonetheless, I'm here.
I can hear you.
Thank you.
All right. The first item on our agenda this evening is a timeline for fire chief interviews.
We have
We
6
have-
candidates, and you should have received the resumes.
Don, can we do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay, sure.
Sure.
Sure. Ready?
Right.
Pledge of Allegiance
Hey,
To the flag of the
To the
United
flag.
States
United
of America,
States of America,
and to the republic
the Republic,
which is stands
for which is
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. And just to remind you, this is being recorded. The first item on the agenda is the timeline for fire chief interviews.
Mhm.
The,
Yeah.
I had asked that for this to be put on the agenda so that we would bring some clarity to the process and we would know what was, where we stood on this. As Mr. Markle just said, we have 6 applicants. I think that when the press release was put in the newspapers, it said that it was for a part-time position. But when the job was posted on the Hamden site and on the SGR jobs site, it didn't say that it was a part-time position. And therefore, 2 of the 6 applicants are from quite a distance from here. One's from the Bronx, and as I recall, one was from Florida. I think we would have to contact those people to see if they recognize that it was a part-time position and they were really applying for that, or if they assumed it was a full-time position. So that was my first issue. And my second issue was that I think we have to have a procedure going forward as to how we're going to interview the people. I thought that when I looked at the human resources outline that Mr. Markle had given us, he had suggested that we develop standard applications, standard questions, criteria for screening, and a standard rejection letter. So all of that could be part of the preliminary getting ready for this process, it seems to me. And following that, maybe a preliminary interview committee could be set up with 2 or 3 people, and their task would be to review the applicants and to decide who should be interviewed. And the makeup might be led by the town administrator and other people as the board sees fit. And then following that, the final interviews by the Board of Selectmen. They could make recommendations or, of 2 people, 3 people, whatever the board chooses. And again, the idea would be that everybody gets the same questions and that it's a formalized kind of process because this is a big decision for us. And it would seem to me that a good goal would be the employment of the person by July 1st, because that starts the new year, and it would be a fresh start for everybody. But all of this is open to discussion. I just thought that it was a timely discussion to have now, despite all the other major issues that we have on our plate.
I do have a standard rejection letter and a set of questions, which I can share with the board.
Mhm. One of the things we talked about at the beginning was that we were doing an internal posting first. So I think talking about having 6 applicants may not be correct at this point. I believe we have 3 candidates that are internal. That would be the first round. And then if we found none of them were qualified, we would then open it up to outside candidates.
You had mentioned that recently, and I don't recall that being the case. And I think that confining it just to internal candidates doesn't let us see the full spectrum of qualified applicants that might be available to us. It's certainly that our people internally might be very qualified, but we don't really know who else is an interest. And I think that the broader we cast our line, if that's the saying, the better we will be served, it seems to me. But I really don't recall saying it would be closed, it would be open just to the internal candidates first.
Yeah, well, I think the first point Mary Ellen made, we should clarify with those applicants from Florida and New York, if they realize that it's a part-time position with really minimum pay. I mean, in the, the large scheme of things. I don't know if someone from New York could be interested in moving up here for $30,000 a year. We should
Right.
clarify that, and that would solve some of our, inside-outside problem.
That's true. Well, if we took those 2 out, then we have 4 applicants. So if John's saying that 3 of them were internally, then there'd be 1 external, 3 internal, 1 external applicants. But it seems to me that, it's as good to do 4 as it is to do 3, and it's worth the extra time and effort. And they've gone to the time and effort to apply, that we could at least go through the process.
I think we should look through our notes and clarify that. I've talked to members of the fire department. They quite clearly recall the board talked about internal promotion first. If we don't feel the internal people are qualified, then we open it up. But I don't think you're sending the right message to the department saying, we're not even going to consider you first in the loop for fire chief.
Not considering doesn't make you first. I mean, it just means that anybody who applied is going to get the courtesy of an interview. That's all it means, really.
Well, you want to, Pam, could you review the minutes? Oh. Bob, would you see that Pam reviews the minutes? So we
I
can
will.
clarify that. Let's
I
make a
will. She's
decision
on
next
here,
week.
but I don't know why it's not working.
She is muted.
Yeah,
She is muted. Maybe that's why.
yeah.
I don't see that she's muted here, but
It's the 896-7010 number. If you're in the gallery view,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I could see that we review the minutes and make a decision accordingly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then the question would be, I have a set of questions. We have the rejection letter. Just be a matter of when and how do we schedule this?
Well, we could do it. It'll have to be remotely again, I guess. So
Mhm.
we would have to line it with each of the individuals. And
Well,
I don't know. Do we want to have a group other than ourselves, or do you just want to do it ourselves? Seeing as four candidates, maybe 5 at the most.
Mhm.
On my timeline, I put May, June for preliminary interviews or board interviews, whichever we decide to go with, only because I thought optimistically maybe the COVID-19 requirement would be we wouldn't have to self-isolate, and it might give us the opportunity to interview in person. And I think personal interviews are sometimes better than video interviews, but both for us, because we come across a little better, and I'm sure the interviewee would have a better chance of presenting their case as the best they can. So that's why I put May or June, but it can be at the board's discretion, I guess.
In
And I think the decision of a preliminary and a board interview is one that we could probably make tonight if we want, if people think they need a preliminary interview, or if they just want to go with the final interview from the board. Then that gives us a little more time too, that we don't have to put 2 interviews in that time span.
So I think it
I
might
would-
be,
No, go ahead, John.
I think it might be good to get other people involved, not to, obviously the board is the important and the final say-so, but experience with the workings of the fire department, I think should be critical for the interview process as well. We might want to cast our net, as Mary Ellen said, to get people on this committee who have some background in it and could help our board with vetting, if you will, the qualifications. Probably can't look to chiefs in some towns because they might have personal relationships with some of the candidates that lets out Wilbraham really. But perhaps reaching out to Long Meadow, somebody like that, to say, okay, as an expert, not an expert witness, Don, but you know what I'm saying. What
Yeah,
are the
yeah.
proper things to ask about if you're looking at a small department like this? You know,
I just lost
All right.
video.
We have video of you.
But I don't have video of you.
Okay.
Now I
Um,
do. Now I do. You're back.
Well, if your decision is to assemble a small group to do preliminary interviews, I can do that, come up with a list maybe.
how does the board feel about asking former Chief Gorski to be part of the board, or a recommendation from him for somebody he may know in the fire chief community? That would be helpful.
That's fine with me.
I mean,
I
who knows it
would-
better?
I
Yeah.
think he's very familiar with the police department and has always the fire department has always done a good job. I would prefer to have somebody outside the community, because I think he could, give us advice and whatever, but I think that they bring more objectivity and more, a broader range of experiences, let's put it that way. So if he would recommend somebody, I think that would be
That's
a
good.
great solution for me, but it can go either way also. I'm not tied to either position.
Well, I think Mike, having served as long as he did, probably has a pretty good outreach to, local people that understand the scope of our department, but maybe, as Mary Ellen says, can be objective to it as well, which I think is really where we want to balance it.
Right.
But
So maybe
So
the
we
town,
would
back-
have- we-
go
I
ahead,
go
Jim.
back to your
So
point,
we'll
let's not let this drag on.
Yeah. So contact Chief Gorski, see if he can give us a recommendation. Who else should be on it, do you think?
I think the town administrator should be on it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't think it should be too large a committee.
Mhm.
And usually committees of odd numbers are better than even numbers. So, whether it's 3 or 5 people, perhaps the town administrator should develop a list and come to our next meeting and say, I would like a person with this
Okay.
background, this background, this background.
Right.
And then develop the committee at our next meeting when you've had some time to think about people that you think might be an asset to that group.
Well, I
But-
think one member of the board and one member of the advisory committee to start would be appropriate.
On the
And
screening
then,
committee, on the preliminary committee,
Yes.
I don't think the board has to be, the board has to be on it, because I think that they're gonna have their own say individually at the follow-up, at the final interviews. And I really don't think that the advisory committee has a role to play either. I think it should be people who have expertise in that area, who have been on interviewing committees before in the past, who, are in personnel services or other kinds of things where they have screened people and can build rapport during interviews. And
All right, let's
So I think- go ahead.
let's think
You go.
about, let's think about this realistically though. We're talking about 4 people.
Yep.
Generally in an interview process, you start with 50 people and you whittle it down to 10 and then 3.
Right.
So we're starting with 4. So, I mean, how much process do we need? How many committees do we need to do this?
Mhm.
We don't need,
You know,
we don't need
I-
many, but I think that they do endorse the people that they're sending forward. So it gives our 3 positions, and then it gives the position of other people that
Mhm.
say, okay, well, they made it through the first round, whatever. We can go with just one. I don't have a problem doing just one. I just thought that it's, the preliminary interview committee broadens the amount of people in the community, the large that can participate, look and feel more thorough. It's a long-term decision for the most part. So, you know, I mean, you would assume this person's going to stay with us for a while. So you want to give it the importance that it deserves. But either way is fine. I think either way is fine. Whatever the board wishes.
I think going back to Don's point, his point is well taken that, look, if we're talking 3 or 4, depending on what the minutes show, do we need to drag it out through 2 levels? But I do go back to, I think Mary Ellen's point is valid, that having these other people there that maybe have more expertise in the questioning help as well. Can we combine those 2
Right.
things together? Make it the one level, but broaden the people so that maybe you don't have the right questions to ask, but they can give us the right questions to ask and do it in one interview process.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Like Don says, we're not whittling 50 down to
No.
3 here. We're-
Right, right,
We're starting.
right.
So
So
are you
maybe the
thinking-
3 of us don't have
are
the
you-
expertise in the questions.
So are you
Well, it
thinking,
isn't only
John,
the,
would you
Go
thinking that the committee would really be the 3 selectmen and 3 or 4 other people?
Yeah, 3 or 4 expert witnesses, if you will, or something like that, that would
Yeah.
provide advice to us. Hey, don't forget to ask about this. Don't forget to ask about this. You know, we've got some good questions, but there might be some specific ones we just don't have, you know.
Well,
the
it isn't
expertise
only-
to ask.
it isn't only the questions from my perspective, it's the answers that we want to know. You know, if somebody's giving us, oh, well, that's a legitimate answer, but it really wouldn't work in a Hampden environment because this,
Mhm.
this, and this, and this.
Mhm.
I would like expertise that says those kinds of things. The questions I think we can come up with, you know, there are a bazillion sources of questions for fire chiefs. So I don't think the questions are of concern, but the answers would be of concern to me. And what kinds of answers you're seeking. You know, how would you handle this situation? You know, person 1, person 2 could say different things, but a person that has a fire chief would say, no, this is what you really should be doing. And this is what I would like you to bring to the table or whatever.
Mhm.
So that's where I would be looking.
So I would suggest that the town, and so we can get into this discussion, the town administrator, check on the 2 far-flung ones to see if they understand that it's part-time. And then we'll know how many applicants we have. And then the committee would consist of, it'd have to be an open, probably we'd have to figure it out, but we'd have to be posted. The 3 selectmen, the town administrator, and then we can pick, you know, someone from the advisory committee, a fire chief, and someone else,
And move it along.
and move it along.
Right.
All right?
And then verify whether it's internal, external, if it's 2 levels. if
All right.
not.
Yeah.
Look through our notes,
Yeah.
please.
Are we
I
still-
go back.
Are we still thinking that the process will play out in May?
May, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I would ask what the advisory committee brings to the committee. What a representative from the advisory committee brings to the selection committee of the fire chief.
So the advisory committee is more than finance. The advisory committee is the character of the town. And you talked before about somebody who has expertise. Well, I certainly know we have a member of the advisory committee who has that type of expertise in both personnel, resource
do.
development, et
We
cetera.
do.
So
We
with
do.
any luck, maybe we'll get lucky and that'll be the person. Not to throw any hints out there, but you know.
I have the zebras on my television, on my screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're here as observers.
Advisory committee?
Oh, okay.
Oh, advisory, I was thinking.
I thought we were in their
All right.
living room. Okay, so
All
we're
right.
set.
That's how we'll proceed. Okay.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is the review of the selectmen's policy manual. I put the policy manual and my suggestions in the box today.
And I got them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the
Mhm.
policy manual I've gotten from Don. I
Mhm.
didn't get the other two, but his suggestions were to add the flag policy, which I will put in, and the special municipal employees exemption policy, which I will also add. And if John and Mr. Markle can give me theirs, I will incorporate theirs, and then hopefully get it back to all of you for a final vote in a timely manner.
All right.
You can just leave them. You can just
Don-
leave them in the mailroom, and I'll pick them up.
Alright.
So just
Don, did you do the warrant when you were down there also?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Mary Ellen?
and I did the warrant.
Okay, good. I'm heading down
And
after the meeting.
I signed the Amoresco contract. That was there.
All right.
And there only had to be one signature on that, right?
There was only one space, so I
That's what I
signed it.
thought. That's what I assumed. I assumed there only had to be one. I did look at it, and I assumed since it was only one space, it was only one signature. So I did not sign it.
All right, ambulance decision.
I've asked representatives from Action to be available if you have any questions. And I think they're on now.
Okay. Everyone had any questions? I think we pretty much answered gone back and forth on this. Do I have does anyone wish to make a motion as to which direction we should go in?
I would make a motion that we enter into a contract with Action Ambulance Services for 3 years as proposed in their proposal, as outlined in their proposal.
That would be beginning July 1.
Beginning July 1. Well, the proposal was beginning January 1st.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it should be July 1 because of the budget cycle.
Well, I think in terms of our payback and our reconciliation with our budget, it makes sense to be on the fiscal
On the
budget
same-
anyhow,
Exactly.
rather than the annual budget. Because you're always going to try and recap for the
Where
following
was it?
year.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Just want to be clear, this doesn't preclude us in the future looking at the Phase B plan and perhaps getting into it in a fall town meeting.
What would that-
Again, we
I don't
talked
know.
about this with Phase B, that is incorporating the fire department into the ambulance plan down the road. Whether it's a funding thing or whatever, we take it up at the fall town meeting, look at it with perhaps a free cash type thing as opposed to building it into the budget at this point. Like I'm saying, I take this motion as not saying no to the fire department. I take this motion as we're going with this Phase A, no telling what the future may bring.
Correct. That's my, right.
I think you never can tell what the future may hold, but I don't think it's a given that we would bring it up at the fall town meeting. I think that would be a discussion to be had between the June town meeting and the fall town meeting
Right.
as to whether we would go forward with that at all. So I think
I
that's
didn't
still
say
open
that.
to discussion.
I
No,
didn't
I'm
say
just
that.
clarifying.
I said this motion does not preclude us from bringing it up in the fall.
No, but we would need
Right.
another motion to do so.
Right. Okay. I'm just
Okay.
saying, we're not
Is there
voting
any
down. Okay. I'll second
Right.
that motion. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, Mary Ellen Glover.
Aye, Donald.
Aye, John.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we concluded that. And I think it's an important part for the town to know. And Bob, so will this go into a line item on the budget, or is this a warrant article for the funding of this?
This would be a line item in the budget, reducing, presumably, I think that we had talked about the funding source being dispatch. We would either have to reduce dispatch and add to ambulance service, or we'd have to find a source of new money in the fiscal
That's in terms of the revenue part. We already have a line item in the budget for ambulance service.
There's a line item.
Yeah.
There's a line item that says ambulance, right?
Right, yeah.
When you get down to the levy sheet or the green sheet, that's when you can worry about the
Right.
offset, if you
Yeah.
will, Don. I think that's your
Right.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But there is a line item now that says ambulance, and I think it's zero.
exactly.
I will follow up with that, and also there's a written agreement that I'll get to you. It'll be in the mailroom for you to sign.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
Uh,
I'm excited that we've gone forward with this, and I think I'm optimistic that they will give us good services, that the people will respond accordingly, and that we will eventually reap some rewards for our contract.
The next item on the agenda is the dispatch. So where are we on that, Bob? Could you fill us in?
Yes,
There's some
I have-
conversation.
Yes,
Go
I've
ahead.
had that in my report tonight, but prior to going through the report, I had contacted, as you know, Town of Wilbraham to ask the question whether or not they would be interested. There was a period of time when I did not have a response, and I then got a call from the town administrator asking if he could have the number in Boston. Actually, I think it's in Middleborough, where the 9/11 office is located. He wanted to talk about financing. The question would be, would there be the same financing for the town of Hamden and the town of Wilbraham together as we would have with Westcom? He came back and said, and then we had a Zoom meeting, and at that meeting, he said that he had the conversation and that it looked as though Hamden, it not looked as though, he was assured that Hamden would still have the promised deal of 3 years at no charge, a 4th year at 50% subsidy, and a 5th year at 25% subsidy, but that would not apply to the town of Wilbraham. Wilbraham would continue to have to pay the costs that they're currently paying. And I guess he went a little further, and I guess it was clear that the state would be a little careful about any overloading of costs or offloading of costs to the town of Hamden, which would be subsidized. And so Hamden would be responsible for a proportionate share. And I think at the end of the conversation, I mean, John can step in here, but I think the issue was what's in it for Wilbraham, and it didn't seem as though any financial interest was there for the town. We also were told that they would put this on the agenda for tonight. So, and we'll find out tomorrow what the full board in Wilbraham thinks of this proposal. So, I mean, frankly, if we're interested in Wilbraham, we're one day off in terms of the timing for a decision.
Yeah, I think as Bob said, the problem is, what's in it for Wilbraham? They don't have the incentive that we have. As Jeff came to our meeting and said he looked into it, regionalizing with Wilbraham would provide the same benefit to Hamden. So it was incumbent on us to check, okay, should we check with Wilbraham?
Right.
But if there's not a huge financial benefit to Wilbraham, they can probably, I won't say write off, but they can probably show that some of their costs have to do with regionalization, but it's not going to be the 100% that we're going to get, and much less. So therefore, is there an incentive? Unless they established it as a regional dispatch center that they were participating in, not if it was a regional dispatch center that they were participating in, not hosting per se, they're not going to get the financial benefit that we're going to get. However, they'll kick it around tonight. As Bob said, they had, I think he had a brief conversation with Nick, but it never really kicked up to the select board level. I know that the fire chief had a discussion with it. Jeff had talked to the police chief. But I think due diligence is we do need a yes or no to show that we did investigate all the local options as well. People have had questions. Hey, is Westcom the only option out there, or is it the only viable option out there?
Well, let me give you my just two things. Number one, I was surprised that you had a conversation with Sue.
Mhm.
We got your email, and then on Sunday I received an email from a text from someone who said, "I see you're going to combine with Wilbraham." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And they said it's on their agenda for their meeting tonight. So, which I didn't know. So I spoke to Sue today,
Mhm.
and I expressed my concern about that, and she said that she would let me know as soon as possible what their decision is. My concern with going with Wilbraham is that we're going to miss the deadline. That the deal between us and Wilbraham, and that wouldn't be done by May 4th.
Mhm.
And it would be put us off another year, which would be another $400,000 that we, would expend on our dispatch, that we'd have to fund. Also, even if they got it in on time, we wouldn't know if we're going to get the grant until October. So we'd have to put a considerable amount of money up front.
Mhm.
So I think we're at the point where we need to make a decision. I was hopeful, I guess they're meeting tonight at the same time we are, so we probably won't know that decision until,
Mhm.
another hour or so. I told, but that's my concern. And we also received an email, I think I forwarded to everyone, from Kelsey Green, the union president for the dispatchers. And of course, they're very concerned about their employment, what would happen, and they want to meet with us regarding that. But I don't think any of this has been a secret what's going to happen. I mean, we've talked about dispatch, back going in 2017. We even had a deal with East Long Meadow at one time. So
Mhm.
I think what we need to do is make a decision here, and we could meet with the union, obviously. They're employees of ours and we care about them. And, we have to make, so I talked last week about a severance package or some type of how we go about this.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's where we are. I'm getting very nervous about missing that timeline. And, because I think it's a great financial benefit to the town, and it's going to happen eventually anyhow.
Mhm. It's going to be interesting to see how the state, what's going on with the state plays with that timeline. I think, as Erin also said, she wouldn't be surprised if some effect on the timeline based on the, if you will, lowering of personnel at the state office, in every office,
Yeah.
getting things done. We're seeing it in our business, Don, and I'm sure, even in your
Yeah.
business, getting responses back from state inspectors is taking longer and longer.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think the deadline, I think the May 4th deadline is going to hold. The question is when they're going to get the response back,
Right.
They did say at one point at Westcom that they would like to have 90 days to do the conversion
Mhm.
and set up.
Right.
Mhm. Well, I'd like to hear what the dispatchers have to say, and we can make that decision next week. But these are our people, as you said, and I think it's worthwhile to have them in and make their point. Have them in, virtually, if you will.
Yeah.
I think that the meeting with the dispatchers is also a healthy thing to do, and I think that to discuss the situation. I think the timing is crucial. I think we have this discussion has been going on for 3 years, and which is a long time in different iterations of it. Whether it was with East Long Meadow, whether it was with Westcom originally, whether it's now continuing. I think that we have certainly done due diligence on this issue in having the various people come in and speak to us throughout the process and give us whatever information they could give us. We've gotten lots of literature from Westcom and to support their position. I think the Wilbraham option is one that I was very surprised to see come forward. I was surprised that John was participating in those discussions, and I was particularly surprised that they called it a proposal on their agenda, which didn't seem to me that we were anywhere near the point of a proposal. I can see I have no reservations about going with Westcom. I don't think that the meeting with the dispatchers has to occur before that happens, because it really has no bearing on the decision. I mean, I think that We certainly want to be fair to them and we want to treat them appropriately. But whether, whatever that treatment is, does not impact whether Westcom can do the job for us and will do it effectively and efficiently and whatever. I was pleased to read the report that Don sent us from Munson on the research that they had done on it and their experience with Westcom, which was again another positive community talking about Westcom. So I would have no problem voting on this tonight with a quick follow-up with the dispatchers as soon as possible to discuss where we're going with them. And I think that would put this issue to rest and allow us to know where we're going to fund the ambulance and to be responsible in making a relatively timely decision. So I guess I would go ahead. Somebody who else?
Bob, what is your recommendation?
Well, I think we need to make a decision soon, given the requirement of they want 90 days to make a transfer. So I also am concerned that we need to get into the budget process for next year, make sure that we get funded. And so waiting one more week and especially finding out what action they take tonight in Wilbraham, I think would make some sense because there will be residents of the town wondering to what extent that was pursued and whether or not it made sense. I think, we got into this. Someone said, one of the members said to me, check with Wilbraham to see if they have any interest. And that's how this originated. When I called the TA over there and posed the question. And I think, in the process, we have to go to a town meeting, and I have no doubt that the question will be raised at the town meeting, to what extent did you explore this with Wilbraham? And I think waiting till they make their decision tonight, and then making a decision for the town of Hamden next week would be a good process.
Right.
And
letting the dispatchers have their say. I mean, there are employees, as Don said, long-term, some of these people have been working for the town of Hamden for our neighbors for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think they have as much a right to an opinion as you and I do.
I agree with that. And if we are going to move to Wilbraham or Westcom, again, there's an urgency so that our dispatchers will have an opportunity to be interviewed and perhaps be hired.
My concern only is, and the only reason I would push for a vote for tonight, but I can certainly wait 1 week. 1 week is not, forever. But I do think that we tend to put things off from week to week. And rather than make the decision that is before us, and that seems clear to me, we put it off. And so when the decision from Wilbraham comes forward, does that then say, okay, well, maybe we should look into Wilbraham a little more? And it just seems to me to keep going on and on and on with our inability to make a decision, is what I see it as. But I can certainly wait 1 week.
All right, so Don, I personally would like to see a vote.
So
on this next
we'll
week.
wait.
Yeah, after we hear from the dispatchers and then schedule for a vote by the board next week, I think would be appropriate. Unless they
Okay.
bring something so
All right,
egregious
I'm
to
fine
us.
with that.
You see, that's the key there, John, though. Unless they bring something, and that's, and you
As
can
I said,
always go,
so
to one
egregious.
more community or one more source or one more something. And it seems to me that the evidence is pretty clear. But 1 more week, if that's the chair's wishes, then I'm okay with that too.
Okay. So Bob, you'll set up some kind of virtual meeting or conversation with the dispatchers between now and next week, and we'll see what the Wilbraham decision is tonight. Sue said that I asked her to text me whatever the decision is, and I'll get it to you folks as soon as I get that.
Okay.
Now, the meeting with the dispatchers will be who?
Okay.
Who will be involved in the meeting with the dispatchers?
Probably the union head, Kelsey Green.
And who
Right.
will and Don, will you be a part of
Town
it?
administrator. I'll represent the town.
Oh, I thought we were putting them on our agenda. I'm sorry, they asked for time in our meeting, not a separate meeting. I thought that email said they wanted
They,
time
they asked for a meeting,
Wait a minute, I'll look.
they wanted time with the board.
at our meeting.
I think you're right, John. I think they said they wanted time with the board.
Yeah. So first on the agenda, so we get that up,
You-
taken care of,
anybody-
and then, right.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, should
right.
you, should,
And
well, I'm wondering, should you meet with them first? Should you meet with the union president first to
Well, it
discuss?
She said, I would like to request a meeting with the Board of Selectmen with a union representative present.
okay,
That was
What
her
did
so
email.
we'll set, so it'll be the first thing on the agenda next week.
Well,
Right.
and would you be discussing with them if this comes to be, what the severance package would be, what the whatever would be?
No.
That discussion
No.
would just not occur.
No.
She would just have a chance to voice her views. Is that the idea?
Right,
Okay.
because it's the discussion of severance and all that would be probably a collective bargaining.
That's what I would have thought. That's exactly
The
right.
negotiation probably.
So-
is that-
Negotiation.
Right,
And
right.
I don't even, in fairness, I don't even know if we have to do that. It's not like town employee, I mean, teachers get laid off all the time and there's no severance or collective bargaining or anything like that. So we have
Right.
to.
I don't think we do have to
I
do
mean,
that. I don't think that you have to do that because I've been involved in that, but I do think that you want to be, fair.
Well, we want to be we want to be respectful and empathetic of where they are because we appreciate what they've done for the town.
Right, exactly,
So,
exactly.
all right. So that's what we'll do. We'll move on to the town administrator report.
Okay. You all have copy?
You
Yes.
do.
Yes.
We
I
do.
sent out a copy earlier today.
Mhm, mhm.
We now have a disability commission. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, we've not been able to convene the group. So if we ever get out of this mess, then I think it'll be appropriate to try and get the disability commission together and to get it underway.
Mhm.
The conservation agent with East Long Meadow has fallen through. East Long Meadow has basically withdrawn from the process. They apparently have some budget issues,
Mhm.
and the town manager has decided that there will be no addition to the payroll, no new hires, even part-time, in the coming fiscal year, 2021. And so we are back to square one. We do have an administrative assistant who is doing the work part-time for the Conservation Commission.
Mhm.
But I had a phone call with Mary McNally, and that's her decision. It's final. It won't change. And so I think for now, at least, the goal of getting a professionally trained conservation agent that would be shared with another community is not going to happen. Not going to happen for fiscal 21.
Now, is the Conservation Commission concerned about their staffing and how that new gentleman is working out and if he has been trained?
We have a member of the Conservation Commission looking in on our meeting.
Have
You've been unmuted, Ted.
Yeah, okay, you unmuted me. We are very concerned. As much as Tom tries, he has very limited knowledge, and without a professional of some sort, either as an agent or an administrator, we are hurting. The paperwork is backlogged, very much so, and everything is getting done as if it was a fire. It's not getting done timely when it's supposed to be. Things aren't not getting filed. Bonnie and I, as you know, before we had the lockdown, were going in whenever we could to try to keep things going. But that was very limited. Two of our members work, as Bonnie does too, so they can't come in at all. Another member is got her share of health problems, so it left basically Bonnie and I whenever Bonnie could go in. And whenever Tom could do something, his knowledge is limited. He was a computer person, but not a PC laptop type person. He worked on hardware and procurement, so he can't even do some of the basics on the computer that we need done. And he knows nothing about the federal and state forms, DEP forms that need to be done. So we are hurting, and I know there was an email issued concerning, expressing our concerns, and I'm echoing the same concerns that were issued in that email. Something needs to be done, folks. It's been 14 months now, I think, and we are still limping, and it's only through some dumb luck that we haven't had a major problem.
Now, what suggestions do you have for changing the situation? Do you have any?
We need to get either a professional agent or an administrator that knows what to do. You cannot operate our commission with strictly volunteers in this day and age because of the legal situations that have come along. You just can't do it anymore. Back in the old days, you know, you could say, okay, your driveway is 100 feet from the wetlands and that's it. Now you've got multiple building projects, you've got solar. It's just way beyond what us volunteers can do.
Are you saying, Ted, this is analogous to, basically analogous to like the assessor's department, where they have basically, you know, Carolyn with
Yes.
a skilled.
Absolutely, John. Absolutely,
Okay.
John.
Mhm.
I agree with that. It's becoming increasingly complicated, and you need someone with significant training and experience.
Yeah. As you well know, last year we had to pay over $2,000 because we didn't cross a T correctly somewhere, and a contractor got out of having to pay for the environmental scientists that we hired that the contractor is supposed to pay for by law, but because we made a mistake, he got out of it, and we had to eat that. That was money the town should not have had to pay if we had a proper person there to be the oversight person, whether, again, it's a trained administrator or a trained conservation agent.
Are there many of these agents around?
There's a lot of them around. The problem is,
Are-
Mary Ellen, it's because it's a part-time thing.
Okay.
It's kind of the same thing with your fire chief, getting someone who's willing to do it. The idea, if it had worked for Mr. Marco, that we had shared with East Long Meadow or shared with
That would have been perfect.
up one of the towns up north, I forget which one it was now, it would have been ideal if you could have split it. That way you could get a person who's willing to work 2 towns and get full pay. Getting someone with a degree who's willing to work part-time for half the money is extremely difficult.
Now, does this COVID, does the coronavirus crisis slow everything down for you? You know, where these things can't be done at this time?
Oh
So
yeah, there's a lot of
gives
things.
us a little-
We're doing what we can, but I have not read it yet, so I'll admit that. But we just got a email from the DEP that basically something to the effect that we're going to have 45 days after the state is reopened in order to solve any pending issues. So we are not doing anything right now other than
Right,
unless
that's-
it's an absolute emergency.
And the new
All right, now how-
legislation, it's going to say the new legislation, by the way, eliminates or suspends constructive granting of permits when regulatory boards are unable to act within a period of time, usually 21 days.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's suspended.
Okay, good.
And is there anything that can be done with area colleges that train conservation people? Is that a resource that we could use?
When
Mentioned-
we
Or
were
PVPC.
looking for someone originally back 6 months ago, and we had the ad out, that didn't come up very much, but no one from a college actually applied.
No.
It was an open, ad, and no one from college. We only had 2 people apply, and both were looking for a full-time permanent position.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I'm just trying to troubleshoot and see what, brainstorm, what could be done, because I think you're in a hard position.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, Mr. Marco, what happened with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission? They were thinking about possibly hiring.
They were going to do the hiring provided that they could get 2 communities together.
Okay,
Originally, it was 3, if you recall.
yes,
One dropped out, and they were still willing to go along and do the hire themselves. And basically, as long as East Longmeadow and Hampden were involved, it would have worked. But when East Longmeadow pulled out, I had a call from Eric Weiss saying, we can't go forward.
okay,
I said, I think it's a good idea. And he said, I do too. But the reality is, if you have training and skills and experience, you want a full-time job.
yes,
Mhm. Just because East Long Meadow's not available, there's no other community in the Pioneer Valley that needs a part-time. We need 3 days, they need 2 days, something like that. Holland, Wales,
Given that
whatever.
this is fallen through, I think that should be the next step.
Right.
I do know that Wilbraham has been approached, and they have a very highly skilled person who works 40 hours a week, and has no other time. So what I can do is check around other communities in the Connecticut Valley and see if anybody has a part-time person who's got a few hours that they could make available.
Mhm. Mhm.
All right. All right, so let's keep that as an agenda item.
Okay.
All right.
Also, I did send the town council a request that they take a look at that proposed agreement from McNamara and add in some protections for the town, such as when recyclables are picked up, they have to be delivered to the Springfield MRF,
Mhm.
and some of the other protections I think that Don had requested. I did talk with her today again, and she understands what's needed. It won't take too long, but we need something better than that handwritten proposal that we got to protect the town.
Yep.
And the other, I think, key for the future is that rather than having trash and recyclable pickups regularly, let's say every week or every other week, we would fall back to the approach where they would come and haul trash and recyclables when we initiate a call to them. When our staff at the transfer station said, the container is full, come pick it up. In the discussions that we had with some of the folks at the transfer station, it was clear that under the existing agreement with Republic, they come regularly and pick it up, whether it's full or not, or whether it's 1/4 full. And so that's wasteful. And so we're going to tighten that up for the next contract.
All
So we
right.
should have that for
That's-
you, if not next week, the week after for your review.
Okay.
I did check on our first responders to see if any were affected by COVID. And the good news is no. There is one firefighter who is employed in another town who also is a call firefighter in Hampden who is affected and is quarantined. And as you know, there's a former police officer who is positive. But in terms of the regular force at the police department, as well as the fire department, we have no we have no problem at this point. We did have one firefighter who was tested in Shrewsbury, and the test came back. Shrewsbury is the was the testing ground for first responders. By the way, that's going to shift to Lowell. So Shrewsbury was shut down as of today, according to the police chief. The test came back negative. So far so good. We're lucky.
That's good.
That's good.
Also, we're going to be reviewing a proposed TIP project for East Long Meadow Road, Allen Street, Wilbraham Road, and so forth. I've
What's
explained
TIP?
that to the Transportation Improvement Program.
Okay.
The big expensive road projects across the country are still financed by the federal government, sending money to the state and passed through the state down to, usually it's the regional planning agency, who then establish something called the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which has representatives of all the communities in their jurisdiction. They receive the federal funds passed through the state. They come up with a program of projects, and they basically dole out the money and the project to the projects that they think are significant and important. What I was told in the meeting we did have earlier is that that intersection there has had 62 accidents in 3 years, and so it would go to the top of the list, and it would be fully funded by the federal government with no match on the part of the community. We would have to probably use Chapter 90 money to do the engineering work, but apart from that, I think the town can most likely get a very important project done with federal funds that would improve safety in that area. So we're going to continue with that, with discussions with that. I have something set up with Mark and Fussin O'Neill on Thursday. It's a Zoom type meeting. Any members of the select board like to listen in, participate, just let me know and I'll send you the information.
Bob, this might be a time to touch on my concerns about the Zoom, security. I had reached out to Bob earlier suggesting we look into Teams, which would be part of our Microsoft license, our Office 365. A lot of communities are using that, a lot of the state communities, even though they have GoToMeeting as well. I think, a lot of us have heard about the Zoom security issues they're seeing around the country. They grew so fast, people are breaking in. Nobody's breaking into this meeting. It's not that exciting. But I think the fact we've invested so much in Office 365 already, that a lot of our people would be better off using that. If you reach out to businesses, that's what we do. I know Bob is looking into it now with Entree.
I've read some articles reviewing video conferencing software. Microsoft Teams is highly recommended. I did have a conversation with Entree this morning. Microsoft Teams does not have the security issues that Zoom has. And I know that a number of communities are moving away from Zoom. So this might be our last meeting on Zoom. I've checked out Microsoft Teams. It runs just like this program. In fact, the dashboard is very much the same. And so we're probably going to go forward with that because it's more secure and we don't have to worry about these so-called Zoom bombers who are able to break in and they start yelling racial slurs and obscenities in your meeting. This happened to Northampton last week, the Northampton City Council meeting. And also, I think, as I mentioned to you earlier, New York City has now decided that they will not use Zoom for any of their video conferencing programs. So I think the best thing is to move away. So.
Right, a lot of the schools have done the same thing as well. Also about that intersection, I know we had some people concerned about the flagpole issue, et cetera. I still think we made the right decision. But as a visibility thing, I have been talking to Mark about what would be the cost of adding a second pole there. looking at the current pole we have, the construction of the base and things like that, he feels it could be done for under 5,000. I present to the board as it's something we want to go forward with and just put it in the budget for next year.
I would not be in favor of putting it in the budget for next year because I think we should be holding the budget every single penny we can save. You know, the MMA document that Don shared with us recently said that we have a need to prepare for a downturn. And I agree with that we have a need to prepare for a downturn. And I know
Well,
that $5,000 is not a lot of money, but on the other side of the coin, if you spend this 5,000, then you're going to spend another, you know, bit over here and over here. And I just think it's a bad message.
Okay, well, with the permission of the board then, I'll go around and reach out to some local people. Maybe we can get some donations that would be happy to donate to offset the cost for that. One of the other things that Mark mentioned was a lot of the flag companies don't recommend the solar lights. We do have a company nearby that has power run out pretty close to the pole. We probably could get a ground installation done pretty easily. And I'm sure they'd be happy to donate, you know, Redditor, if you will.
You gotta run an extension, run an
An
extension
extension
cord.
cord.
Well, no, I think, you know, they have their entrance already with a couple of
Yeah.
lamps in the ground. I think to do
Yeah.
it underground, an extra 30 feet wouldn't bother them at all. But with the board's permission, we'll
Okay.
start a little fundraising operation, see
Sure.
what needs to be done.
I have no problem with that.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
Along,
I have, guys. Go ahead,
You go.
Mariel.
oh, the only thing I was going to say is I'm going to try to do up another newsletter on the for the 15th. If they're still running it now with the COVID, I'm not sure what's going on with that. But so I'm going to do a page, and maybe John, if you can just get me a flyer or not a flyer, but the details of the flag thing. That would be something nice to include. That
Yeah.
those people donated and supported the flag.
Yeah,
You know.
Ted, what do you know about that? Are we still doing scribe compilation, et cetera? As far as you know?
What was the question,
Are we
John?
still doing the scribe compilation? Is they still doing the scribe?
I've talked to Becky, you know, a couple times a week on email, and that has not been mentioned in our discussion, so I do not know.
Okay.
Well, we'll check, and I'll just send you an email, John, if for the details of the flag, if
Sounds
we
good.
need that information, because I think that would be nice to include,
Mhm.
even with a picture of the flag.
Do you have anything else on your report, Bob?
Just one more, I think, for the benefit of the public. They should know that the basic functions of town government continue. We are doing payroll. I'm sure they got their tax bills in the mail. The boards and committees are meeting. The Conservation Commission had a meeting. The Park and Rec Commission had a meeting. The library book club met, so they're going to meet again on Saturday. And I'm meeting the department heads and staff using video conferencing on Wednesday of this week. So
I want, that's what about your department heads meeting. I was going to ask you if you thought they could put, each department could put together a 1 or 2 line thing in exactly about what you're just talking about. The functions of government are still continuing. This is what they're doing every day, or this is how they're handling the crisis.
right.
We could put that on the website or on the Facebook page.
Okay, I will do that. Last week, we had discussed having them submit timesheets with little notations as to what kind of projects they're in, but you know, this would be another way to accomplish the same objective.
And that could be another thing to include in the scribe if it's done by that time.
Okay. That's my report.
The other issue, the other thing I'd like you to have them think about is, I assume you're going to go over the new legislation and how it affects each of the departments, because there's kind of something in there for everybody.
Right.
And the other thing is they probably should start thinking about is their budget again for next year, and the real possibility that we may end up going to 1/12 budgets, and you know what that might mean for them. Yeah, I also want to ask if someone could ask a question, if you could check with the region or something. You know, the people who've been the custodians and the lunch people and the bus drivers for the transportation, what is their status? Have they been laid off? And if so, is that resulting in a savings to the region? And how does that reflect on their budget or our assessment? Or are they still being paid? You know, I don't know about the lunch people. They're not serving lunches. I don't know if they're, you know, have some kind of arrangement to get paid, or the custodial staff. You know, we're not transporting the kids, so are we still paying that transportation contract? Are those bus drivers being paid? I mean,
Okay, I'll have that for my report next week. I'll talk to the superintendent or Mr. Barber and find out what specifically they're doing.
The other thing I wondered about is the town report. Is the town report going to come out when it normally does, or is it going to come out late?
It is on track to
Well,
come out as normal.
I am-
Pam?
Can you hear me?
Pam's there.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, okay. There are a couple of reports that I am waiting for. Don had requested that some changes be made, and I have not gotten anything back from the fire chief. And I did hear from Jane today that he wondered how soon he needed to get that to me. For the most part, I'm pretty close to having it together. I do need to speak with the gentleman who does the printing for us and get on a schedule. And I imagine, you know, he's in the same boat as everybody, trying to
Yeah,
work the
right.
best deal that we can. So I will get in touch with him this week and
Great.
figure out, you know, his timing and our timing.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I did have a conversation with the fire chief today about the annual report. Yeah, he
Yeah.
said he's going to start now and put it together. We should have it in a day or so.
Okay.
All right. Good. Thank you. The last item on the agenda is the Board of Health. Mary Ellen as chairperson. I brought this to the board's attention. This is a property on Fernwood.
Fernwood property.
The building, the house is in foreclosure. The former residents have moved to South Carolina, and there's a pile of trash in the front and the back, and an abandoned car. And it's I sent you pictures. I don't know if you guys got the pictures or not.
Yep.
And so they've sent a letter to the bank. The bank hasn't responded. And Laurie's suggestion is we have it cleaned up and put a lien on that property.
So Don, is this similar to what we did on Raymond Drive, the same process? Did Lori say that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah,
We did that maybe 2-3 years ago. I think if Bobby would check with Lori.
yes.
We did a receivership type thing and all.
Right.
Okay. We were able to
Yeah.
bill them back for the work afterwards.
Okay.
Basically.
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
And I assume Lori has dealt
Yes,
with
she
the
was.
bank and can't get any action. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
Especially at this time, half the people are
Yeah,
there.
I mean, so, you know, so
Well,
you don't
I'm
really
not-
have any
you know,
option.
I'm not sure if it's not one of these deals where the mortgage has been sold, 50 places down the line.
Right.
It's a lot
We
of,
also have the
it's a
option-
lot of, it's his job, it's his job, it's his job,
Yeah.
believe me.
Yeah, right.
We have the option of the Attorney General's program for derelict properties like this as well,
Hmm.
if the bank does not want to cooperate.
Right.
Or the mortgage company or whoever owns it.
So Mary
What-
Ellen, do you need this
what
on
is
the
that
vote of the board
option?
to go forward?
Yeah.
The
but
Attorney General has a program where they step in. And
Yes.
basically they require the cleaning up of the property, bringing it up to code, or else.
But again, from who? I think it's back to Don's point. We can
Right.
require what we want, but until somebody raises their hand and says, okay, I'll take that responsibility, they're still whatever. I
Yeah.
think the cleaning up of it, we can afford to do it and give the bill to whoever we determine it's going to be down the road. But it's a health hazard to everybody else on the road right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
it's-
we need a motion
And
to
they're,
take
and
all
the
means
neighbors,
necessary to clean it
the
up.
neighbors can, right, the neighbor's concern is, the warm weather's coming,
Right.
it's
It's
gonna
gonna get
attract
worse.
vermin and everything
Right.
else.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So
So then we
mo-
would just take a motion to have a clean and lean activity on Fernwood property. Would be
I'll
okay.
make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Aye.
John and I.
Mary
Aye.
Ellen.
Aye.
Okay, it's done.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else to come before the board? Hearing
Are we-
none.
are we gonna-
Motion to
I just want,
adjourn.
can I just ask one thing before you do that? Should we have just a budget meeting, or is that not necessary to try to get ourselves around where our budget is going and what cuts people are proposing and all that kind of stuff, separate from a regular meeting? You could think about that for the future, because we don't need it right now today, for sure. But I'm just thinking that that is a crucial, we're in a crucial time, you know, and I think that I would feel more comfortable if we had devoted our sole attention on that topic at one meeting. But, so I would suggest that for the future, for the chair.
Okay. All right. Bob, let's put it on it. We can set, well, Jeff, Bob and I'll set a date, agenda. John, you set, okay with that?
Fine with me.
All right.
You know, we could even do it, we
Anything
could even do it,
else?
we could even do it instead of one of our meetings, you know, a meeting and then a budget. The second meeting would be a budget meeting or something like that, so that,
Yeah.
we
Well,
don't-
it's just in that case, it's just an item on the agenda.
yeah, but,
Right.
okay,
The
so
key
we want
part,
it to be totally
the
on
key
the
part
board.
is going to be, as Bob has done more work, getting that information into the cloud so we all have it in front of us.
Right.
You know, that's the key part. And Bob, thank you for the OneDrive. We'll keep doing more of that, scan documents up there. The more we have in front of us, the easier it is. And that goes back to Mary Ellen's point. We're not
And Mary
pushing it
Ellen-
off because we have the data in front of us.
And Mary Ellen and
Not like,
Don
"Oh,
now
I'll
have
get that for you
access,
next
I hope.
week. I'll get that for you next week.
I have access to it. I've always had access all
Right.
along.
So,
Good.
bigger screen.
Okay.
We just need bigger screens, that's all.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
So
so
moved.
moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I got two so moved in 2 seconds.
Whoever it was.
That must speak to something about the meeting, Don. I have to say.
Right.